You don't want the long version, do you? You want to learn about a lot of things, but you can't stand listening for hours on end. Here in Do You Know, I deliver bite-sized pieces of knowledge in short episodes so you get to know about a lot of people, history, animals, sports, science, and much more without losing your attention over so many details. Do You Know? Extremely short introduction to everything. I'm your host, Danny. Join me on this short, sweet, and valuable journey to knowledge. Welcome to a new Do You Know episode and a very short introduction to Paul Revere. You can find the text on my website, EnglishPlusPodcast.com. And better yet, if you are a patron, you will get a special PDF listening practice worksheet to take your English along with your knowledge to the next level. You can find the links in the description of the episode. And now, without further ado, let's talk about Paul Revere. On April the 18th, 1775, in the dark of night, Paul Revere awoke to pounding on his door. Friends brought news. British troops were on the move. Revere pulled on his clothes and jumped on a borrowed horse, along with two other horsemen. He galloped from his home in Boston, Massachusetts, to the nearby town of Lexington. While there, he warned the American leaders John Hancock and Samuel Adams about the approaching British troops. Revere then raced on to warn the town of Concord, where the Americans had stored guns. British scouts were waiting. They captured Revere and one of the other riders. But the alarm had already spread. American Minutemen, or volunteer soldiers, ran from their homes to defend their towns. By morning, they lay waiting for the British troops. The battles of Lexington and Concord became the first battle of the American Revolution. So that was Paul Revere. But let's talk now more about his early life. Paul Revere was born in Boston in 1735. His father was a silversmith. As a young man, he entered his father's silversmith business. So now Paul Revere as a silversmith and craftsman. Revere quickly gained fame as a talented silversmith. His finely made bowls and gleaming tea sets were widely admired. Today, a piece of Revere silver is worth a fortune. Gifted with his hands, Revere learned to craft many useful things. He built medical instruments, engraved pictures, and even made false teeth. And now, let's talk about Paul Revere as an American patriot. Revere used his talents as a craftsman to support American liberty. He engraved political cartoons that scorned the British. Many of his cartoons were soon throughout the American colonies. Revere also served as a messenger for some of Boston's best-known American patriots, including Adams and Hancock. In 1770, British soldiers fired into a mob, killing 5 Americans. Revere's famous engraving of this event, known as the Boston Massacre, whipped up American anger. On a cold December night in 1773, Revere took part in the Boston Tea Party. Protesting a British tea tax, Americans climbed on board British ships and dumped expensive tea into Boston Harbor. Now, what did Revere do during the war? During the American Revolution, Revere served in the Massachusetts militia. He also continued his business. He helped make cannons for the army and engraved metal plates for printing money. He also designed the seal or the logo still used by the state of Massachusetts. And finally, what about Paul Revere after the war? After the war, Revere continued as a successful silversmith, an expert metal worker. Revere learned how to roll sheets of copper. He went on to build the first mill in the United States that made sheets of copper. Revere died in Boston in 1818. So, that was everything I wanted to share with you in this very short introduction to Paul Revere. Don't forget to visit my website, EnglishPlusPodcast.com, and check on the great learning opportunities you can find there. There is the Activity Center with daily fun activities, quizzes, and logic and math puzzles, And if you decide to become a patron on Patreon, there's a lot more available only to patrons, like exclusive audio series, English Plus magazine, among many more benefits you get when you become a patron. All the links you need are in the description of the episode. What are you waiting for? Take your English and learning to the next level and never stop learning with EnglishPlusPodcast.com. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. This is your host, Danny. I will see you next time.